Go ahead.
Okay, then we'll go ahead and call the Public Works Committee meeting of April 25th to order. We have the acceptance of the agenda.
I'd like to make an amendment to move up Southern Trace waiver request, which is listed at number 4.
Okay, to number 1.
The number 1, because we have a guest from Glen Oaks.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to make a motion to move number 7, street lighting committee review. We had Tony who's going to speak on that.
Okay, great. Thanks. Since there's no objection to that, we'll go ahead and move them as number 1 and number 2 items. And then everyone else, all the other listing will go accordingly down the line. There are no ordinances or resolutions tonight. First on our agenda, we have Southern Trace waiver request.
So let's see, how would we start? Sarah, do you want to kind of give an update on the process, and then Chris has a request to make?
Sure. Yeah. So for our neighborhood traffic calming program, typically what's outlined in the policy is that we would receive a request for traffic calming from the HOA or 2 or more residents along a residential roadway. And then upon receipt of that request, staff would identify a petition area and provide a packet with the policy for their reference, and that would include names, addresses for the petition area. And so in this instance, we have worked through that process, and then I believe there was a complication maybe.
So you remember what was in the number of surveys that were required? I'm sure Chris has that information.
This one I don't remember
Okay,
specifically.
so if it's okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn the floor over to Chris. He's
Okay, Chris, welcome to our Public
Thank
Works
you.
Committee.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all having me.
I'll give you the floor.
All right, I can condense this as quick as I can, get you up to speed and then make my request. Again, thanks for having me. Chris Laginus, I'm with Glen Oaks HOA. Basically what happened was last October, we had our annual board meeting. The residents that were there expressed concern over the traffic issues on Southern Trace, being mainly people use it as a through street to get over to Glen Oaks Shopping Center. A lot of kids in the area, things like that. So reached out to Mr. Robertson, talked to some people at the city, and they educated me on the process as far as going through the traffic calming study. We sent letters to all the affected residents. Had maybe 4 or 5 people show up at the meeting. From that point, one of the other board members and myself canvassed the street for signatures for the petition. I think we had roughly 40 residents that were affected, needing half. We came up just a few shy. And the main reason for that being that there's so many rental properties, we couldn't access the homeowners. So my request today would be that you kindly consider waiving the requirements for the traffic calming study and perhaps do some striping on Southern Trace to help alleviate some of the safety concerns and traffic concerns on the street.
So Chris, do you recall the number of surveys that you were asked to get a positive response?
I've got that here if you guys need to see it.
And how many did you get of that number?
All right. I saw you doing this earlier, so if you don't mind.
Sure.
This is one of those becoming more of a gentleman these days. Let's see, 39 is what we were required to have. And it looks like we came up with 39 affected. So 20 is what the number we were looking for. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11, 13. We came up with 15 is what we ended up with. None that we spoke with were opposed. One of them had a concern over him not having the proper address on the document. And he said he would sign if we needed it. We never went back to him because we didn't get to the 20 we wanted. But let me resume the positions. Okay.
So I have a motion unless there's questions, Mr. Chairman.
No, are there any questions on this? Has the staff looked at this already, or do you know?
We provided the petition
Right.
packet with the information. As far as the waiver request, there really isn't necessarily an allowance for that, but I mean, this committee could make the decision to provide that. I would just like to know, my understanding ahead of time was that the waiver request was for the number of petition signatures to do a traffic study. Are you asking that we don't do a traffic study at all? Is that
My preference, and I believe the preference of the parties involved would be for a more accurate reflection to go ahead with the study would be my preference.
Okay.
But if it's more feasible, you know, and everybody involved just to do the striping and see where we go with that, that would be really appreciated as well. So either way, you guys want to think is the best
Okay,
best measure.
I appreciate you saying it, because that's why I asked you on that, because I knew it was a, you know, a thing that we had to do on there, and so you've done that. Are there any other questions on this? Yes, sir. Yeah, Jim.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Jim Waters, Alderman Ward 6. This
Nice
is
to see you, sir.
my brother here in Ward 6.
Amen.
Does this have to go before Bowman?
No, it would not.
It would
need
not,
to.
okay. Let me say up front, he and I support any kind of street improvements. I don't care whether it's Ward 6 or Ward 3 or Ward 19, it doesn't matter. But I'm confused. Is Southern Trace in HOA
Roughly half of it is.
from Weston, from Weston to Georgetown?
Wessington,
Weston to
To Glen.
Georgetown, that's not HOA.
no, we're not going that way. We're going from Wessington and Southern Trace run opposite directions. So what they will do is run down Wessington and cut through Southern Trace to come out over by where the old food line used to be. The Glen Oak Drive right there.
Okay.
I'm confused. You're not talking about Southern Trace from at Weston down towards HOA.
It is at Wessington does run near Southern into Southern Trace, or they run against each other. I'm sorry. But we were not going about half of, if the question is how much of the road is affected by the HOA, it's roughly half of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Weston down to past Georgetown.
No, not Wessington, it's Southern Trace. It's
I'm sorry, sir. From Weston intersection
yes, sir.
and Southern Trace down to Georgetown is not HOA, correct?
Correct. That's not where we're going with this either, though. It's another direction. I don't know if I can pull up a map.
I'm confused.
Can I pull up a map to show you, Mr. Waters?
You don't want to go toward west, toward west. You want to go the other way.
Right, through the Glen Oak HOA area.
Yeah, he's pulling it up.
Sorry if I'm not describing this eloquently.
Okay,
for you guys.
I'm just confused. I'll get over who you're talking about.
It's all
Sorry.
through Shackle.
Yeah, it's going the wrong direction.
Sign you Shackle.
Be right here.
Yeah.
Southern Trace.
There you go, yep.
All right,
So right there's Wessington.
Weston down to Georgetown is what I was referring to. That's not.
Oh, I'm
HOA.
sorry. You're right. I'm sorry.
Now, will you explain to the old man here, what you're asking for, in what direction, where?
And for clarification, as odd as it is, Glen Oak Court is not a part of Glen Oak's HOA either.
I know.
Okay.
But.
Yeah, you guys know this. I've only been here
Say
14
about
years.
that.
Y'all been here a lot longer than me. So from the Glen Oak Clubhouse area all the way through Wessington. That's the affected area that I would like to see addressed.
That's what you're saying, Southern Trace all the way to Weston,
Yes, sir.
and, because that's not in Glen Oaks.
Half of that is,
Which parts?
I understand.
not all of it.
Which parts of the answer?
I say from Georgetown back toward Weston.
If you can you zoom in a little bit more or no? AG Circle is where it starts. That's where our HOA starts.
That's where
Yes, sir.
HOA starts. You come back to Weston. That's, none of that is HOA.
That's correct.
So my concern, and I'm not objecting, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just confused. Why you want to put that part in your plan? I mean, it doesn't affect HOA principles.
Mhm.
So I'm asking, why do you want to put all the Southern Trace in there?
And we spoke to a lot of the ones that were down on that end. We spoke to a lot of the neighbors that were down on that end that were for it. I guess you could say we're being neighborly, okay? Because it is a concern that everybody has around there. We actually had one member that is not a part of the HOA show up at our meeting to discuss this with us. But if that's the way, you know, the board feels we should separate the two, I don't have any qualms with that at all. I just appreciate any consideration y'all give to it. It's gonna, my understanding is these can be done once every 2 years, right? These traffic calming studies. Is that correct? With Costco coming in there, I expect this is only gonna get worse for us. Okay, so, I mean, better for business. I'm not debating that. I'm just saying for traffic.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna see New Shackle backed up and they're gonna use Southern Trace like they always do.
Well, there's an Alderman there. I was just concerned about why. You mentioned all the Southern Trace when I knew what an HOA was.
Yeah, and I can look at the signatures, Mr. Waters, and see.
You don't do that.
Well, I mean, you raise a good question. If it's I'm a union representative. That's what I do. I'm a state rep, okay? And we have different, I work for the Postal Service. Some, like the city carriers union, they'll speak on behalf of their carriers, and then the carriers get mad sometimes. Why are you speaking for me? As a rural representative, they have to, you know, fire the first shot, so to speak. So I understand exactly where we're going here with this, and I appreciate the concern. Sorry,
It's okay. That's okay. You don't have.
I could break this down, you know, to see who is,
It's okay. Have they met all the requirements that you require to get this done?
No, they haven't. They've been unsuccessful in collecting the minimum number of signatures. And so that's the waiver that they're requesting is for us to go ahead and move forward with this study.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Mayor had a question.
Sir, in this ordinance, is there any leeway that the mayor has that anything that I can do?
This is more of a working policy. It's not, it was never passed as an ordinance. It's just a way to prioritize some criteria to select roadways that are eligible.
If the committee passed a motion to ask me to grant a waiver, does that comply with what we need?
Or we could just wait ourselves,
Yeah.
because the working policy was approved by this committee.
Yes.
So we have that discretion.
We disagree on that.
I don't know.
I agree with you. And you were doing good there for what?
You're doing great, yeah.
I think our objective is the same.
Yes.
I'll let you guys figure that out.
So I have a question before I make a motion. Sarah, was all of Southern Trace, all the way to Wessington, was that included in the survey sample?
I believe it was with the understanding that if we were to go in and put pavement markings, we wouldn't do half of the street. We would
Just live in Oaks area
That's right.
until the other neighbors started wanting it. And
Right.
then you'd have to go back and do it.
We would
Okay.
provide pavement markings for the whole stretch.
And the requirement was 20. And they got 15, and several of them, because they were, the way I understand it, Chris, the reason they were able to get all the 20 is some of them were renting. And they didn't feel that they had the authority to grant that, or to say yes for the person that owned the property. Okay, I'll make a motion. I believe that substantial compliance has been made. I believe the spirit of the policy has been achieved. I believe there are justifiable reasons why the full 20 cannot get. So I would like to, based on that, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize the staff to do a traffic study of Southern Trace, and then share with the HOA the results, and along with Mr. Waters and I and this committee, the results. And if the results justify, then we'll take the next step, which would be the striping of the road in the HOA area. So I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's been a proper motion and a proper second. Does anyone need the motion repeated? What that motion is for the staff. That they, um. You all do a traffic study and see where it comes out and then report back to the alderman from 6 in this committee. And see what the study says, and then if after that. And after we go through our deliberations for that, then we'll we'll probably get that striped. So what's gonna happen, to be honest with you, instead of all this political jargon we've been using. That's what's gonna happen, it looks like, I hope anyway.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, it passes unanimously. So we're gonna do the traffic study.
All right.
And then just keep in touch with us at Public Works or with Eddie. And we'll see. I don't know, when we think that, do you have any clue when that'll be done?
It take us a little bit of extra time right now, since we don't have a traffic engineer currently, so it'll be a couple months.
Okay. Yeah,
And I know we've got to call a second meeting for the affected residents. Is that at the conclusion of the traffic study or at the conclusion of the decision whether or not to go forward with it?
Yeah, usually when you're deciding whether or not you know, are in agreement, would like us to go ahead and proceed, which depending on the data, we might just do either way. Just depends on how the traffic data comes out, but
So wait till we hear back from you guys.
yeah, I'll
All right.
communicate.
when do you expect your meeting with the HOA?
Well, I'm gonna wait until we hear back.
Just gonna
from
wait on us
Yeah.
and then you do it.
And then
that
we'll
way.
set a mailing
Probably
out.
smart.
15 days prior, and we'll have another meeting.
All right, yeah, that's probably the proper thing to do. Okay. Well, we've got it going for you.
I appreciate
Just keep
everything.
in touch with us, we'll keep in touch with you too.
All right, Mr. Waters, I appreciate you digging in there a little bit. I like that. I'm on a board myself for the postal service. And I always gotta have one that's kind of,
I have to.
What about this?
You do this, you do that.
Thanks y'all for your time.
Second lieutenant.
I appreciate all your time. Have a great day.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, now
Let
we're,
me ask a question.
sure, yes.
Is this, they just want to stripe down the middle of the road? Is that what it's
Yeah.
all
They
about?
think that might slow people down.
Okay.
And I've had complaints, as you have, people speeding on Southern Trace. This study will verify if that's the case.
But will the line down the middle eliminate?
I don't know.
That's the first step.
That's the one you keep your fingers
The edge
crossed on.
lines also, so it tightens up the perception of how much drivable width they have.
Well, I know that.
All right, let's go to number 2,
I know
which is the
that
street lighting.
That 32 feet wide, I know that.
Sir, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Skidmore.
Yes, sir.
I'm Tony Camelli. And last summer, I decided that because of my age, I couldn't play 3 times a week, golf that is. So I had some spare time on my hands, so I called the mayor and said, you have something that I could help you with. And after a couple back and forth, he says, yeah, I got this project that I don't have any staff to do, but how to handle it. It's a streetlight conversion program. I said, well, I don't know anything about streetlights, but I'll be glad to try to help. So since then,
Yes.
I have been trying to figure out what's happening across the country and just how much the city of Hendersonville was spending on streetlights. And in order to do that, I had to look through 76 bills that the 2 utility companies present every month. But so the mayor and I developed some goals for the committee, and there's enough for everyone here.
Why don't you sell yourself short? Will you tell us your background?
Pardon me?
Will you tell us your background?
Your background.
Oh, my background?
Yes.
I retired about 20 years ago from the Bell system, Bell telephone companies. I spent 35 years with Bell in Illinois and Indiana. And 30 of those years were in management. And I had probably a dozen assignments during that period of time. And my final assignment was running the Human Affairs Division in Indiana.
Bless your heart.
I used to be a lot taller. It was quite an experience, but obviously I had no experience in streetlights. So we developed these goals. And the first one was to analyze the city's expenditures for streetlights. And that's why I had to get copies of the bill. And I didn't go through every bill for the whole year on each 76 accounts. But I did take, in NES's case, 3 months worth, and in CES, 2 months worth. And try to come up with some averages. And I'll share that analysis with you shortly. To come up with some figures to exactly figure out how much we're spending and how much we could save with we went through the LED process. And then the second one is to determine alternatives to current streetlight system. And that's an interesting one. You think, well, we're just going to change streetlights. Well, the technology is moving so fast, it's unbelievable what's going on. And the conversion of streetlights, it's not simply just changing the heads of the streetlights from the sodium streetlights to the LEDs. That's one option, obviously. But there are smart systems now that are available that will that you can arrange for the system to dim lights at a certain hour, or they can be motion sensors. They can have weather sensors to tell you when there's a storm coming. Camera sensors, cameras for safety, a variety of things that can be done using either the internet or using radio frequencies to do all that. And that's one of the things that we're going to sort through and see what's the best system for the most reasonable cost for the city of Hendersonville. Okay. And then the providers of those systems. There are a number of providers. I looked around the country, and Phoenix did 100,000 lights. Boston did 80,000. Chicago did over almost 300,000 streetlights. Knoxville did 30,000. Phillipsville did some. I don't remember what the figure is there.
I think, and I interrupt you, I think Murfreesboro did too. They did their
Think you're
streetlights. If I'm not mistaken with that.
And there are all kind of companies doing that work, and Pathit is one that presented an overview of our system here in 2021, and you may have all seen that. Amoresco is another one, a huge company from the UK, as a matter of fact. Siemens is another one. So there's a number of companies that do this kind of work, and we've tried to filter through and see exactly who's the most qualified, who always has the best offers, and all the kind of things you would expect us to do, so that we can present to you folks exactly what's going on. And then advise the city on the preparation of RFP to provide for those systems and conduct what needs to be done, and in-depth what the folks that do this call forensic reviews of your current system. In other words, what do you have out there that, and what kind of covers is it? Kind of, are there more streetlights now, or less? Do all those kind of things, which is an important part of this, because the LED heads are a lot different than the sodium heads, because they can be adjustable. They can prevent sky glow, or light trespass, and light on areas that people object to, that kind of thing. They all can be adjusted to that. So they need to get a sense of exactly what's out there and what needs to be done. And that should be done, obviously, by a company who is competent enough to do that. And then provide the cost benefits for the system, determine the most effective way to converting all the streetlights to LED, and then advise also the city on how to pay for it. We have to use all of our money to do it. Is there another way to do it? Is there financing available? So government funds available? Those kind of things we need answers to. So that's pretty much what our goal is. And I prepared this analysis, and I spent the last 7 months doing all this. And it's a bit of a challenge, because I spend to share that place. I spend my winters in Florida, so I did a lot of this in Florida when I was down there. And it was very useful to do that. This is analysis of the 76 streetlight statements that city receives every month. And there are two companies, obviously, NES and CMC. And NES has 51 accounts. And according to the information I've gotten directly from our contact at the city unit, we have 7,768 high pressure sodium streetlights and 50 LEDs. Now, that's a bone of contention at the moment we're going to try to figure out, because the path that they did in 2020 and 21 says that we have 2,471 streetlights from NES. Representative that I talked to from NES says that's what you're being billed for, is 7,700. So we have a path representative coming in the next meeting to talk about this report. And I warned him about that, and he's going to pursue that, find out what the difference is. So we know exactly how many streetlights we got. The charts are simply the tally of every account that the city has for power. And it gives you the account number, the description of where it's at, what rate. The first chart for NES, that is the street lights. That is the traffic light. But it's built on a flat rate for some reason. The one next to it is the flat rate street lights. And you can see that I've taken the 3 months of bills that I had and averaged them for 3 months, and then averaged them again for the annual figure. I did that for every account. So of the three charts, total annual billing is from NES is $776,909.62. And the streetlight average billing is $336 and change. And that's 43% of your total billing. Now, most of these companies will tell you that by switching to LEDs, you're going to save anywhere from 40 to 60%, depending on how it's all wired and what wattage it uses and all that. That's a bunch of money. Going to the CMC, they have 25 accounts, 372 high pressure sodium lights, and 4 LEDs. Difference between the two companies is that CMC actually bills as a bill that tells you how many streetlights is on it, versus NES has a flat rate bill that you don't know. That's why I had to ask it. So it's just a slight difference. And as you can see, the two charts that I figured for them, and then the total average billing was $135,041, and their streetlight billing was, the average billing for streetlights is $58,554, 43% of the total billing. So there's your average annual is below. Total billing $912,310. Streetlight billing $393,078. Percentage is 43%. So an average, annual average $157,507 that could be saved based on a 40% savings, and that's 1.5 million over 10 years. Any questions?
I would just like for you to add, as you meet with these companies, to also try to project an ROI, a return on investment, to see how long it would take to pay them off. So I think they'll provide that, but I'd like to. And also, once these companies provide some numbers, I believe NES will help you validate those numbers to see if, in their opinion, they're accurate.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Those are two things they asked.
The other question I have, and I know maybe you can answer because you've been involved, and utility business.
Yeah, I was in state
I know regulatory. I checked on it.
Yeah.
Oh.
I like this guy.
Can't get away, so.
You ever examined any steppers, old step switches?
Oh, yes, I know those quite well.
Yeah.
If we pay to change the heads on these tree lights, who owns them?
Yeah, right now, the utility companies.
But that's a question too. There's some that maybe they don't.
That's a good question.
Hmm?
So that's a good question. Really is.
Now, if you ask NES, they'll say, well, wait a minute,
Yeah, yeah. But maybe not.
maybe not. This has been a very educational program I've gone through, folks. I always didn't get straight answers. And, but it's been interesting. I have a conference call with an engineer from Knoxville on Monday. Talk about their program. They did over 30,000. They had they took a segment of the town as a trial basis to see how it was going. That's the interesting thought based on the trial that you got. That, we could take perhaps the CEMC section and do that first with the small ones and see what it looks like.
So Andy, what's the percentage of LED lights in the parks?
Ball fields are in the parking lots, so
Ball fields.
ball fields. We have a football field, 2 baseball, softball fields. 1 and 3/4 soccer fields. 3 and 3/4 soccer fields. Out of over 20 total. fields.
Do we have the ability to analyze the savings from those LED?
Compared to what they were, I really have to get finance, do some digging into all.
I'm not asking.
That's a good point.
We have,
We have some history.
Are you talking about the street lights or the floodlights, the actual bulb?
he's talking about on the actual fields themselves.
See, those are billed differently.
I understand.
Those are
That's a
athletic.
higher rate, and that,
Athletic rate.
then there's a chance that they may have been being billed as streetlights for a time when they were metal halide. And now they're not.
Well, I had to go to Rick's Creek
Yeah.
because I got these 2 bills. I couldn't figure out exactly what they were for.
Mhm,
And they was one for these ballpark lights,
mhm.
but there's a number of street lights out there.
Right,
I
and we,
couldn't figure out where they were being built.
right, and we did just convert a couple of, in soccer, a couple of old wooden pole metal halides to LEDs.
Yeah.
And we just added some wooden poles with LED on it. But that may be a more recent way of looking at it.
I don't know, it's staff.
The other thing I want to tell you that I discovered is that you're being billed for pole attachments. 106 pole attachments. It's costing you $3,600 a year. And when I ask what they are, they go, they could be signs, they could be cameras. So we're gonna take a look at that.
Now, in our case, in the park, when we changed, we didn't hire a company to convert our old metal halides to LED. They just changed it. NES changed it to LED. And then it affected whatever our bill would be from that point, either higher or lower. We didn't hire anybody. They just did the parking lot lights themselves.
Good. Well, thank you for your analysis so far, and I look forward to.
We'll try to
You've
use
done
what you
it,
learned.
you've done an excellent job.
Yeah, thank you. Good selection.
Yeah, you did a nice job.
James, I do smart things, that's why Connor's smarter than I am. Did you find him? He called me up.
I just want to make sure now, what's your address? I want to make sure you're not in Ward 1.
number 4.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Lake
I'm
Terrace
saying,
Drive. I live in Lake Terrace Drive.
okay.
That's me.
Welcome. Thank you.
You bet.
So what, well, before you leave now, what's our next step? You're gonna go back to to the committee? Or what is your next?
Oh, yeah. Well, May 11th for the next meeting and
Okay.
the representative from that company will be here to tell us exactly what that company does.
Okay.
He's working with Brentwood right now. We're doing something. And tell us exactly what, first of all, talk about his analysis. It's similar to what I did.
Okay,
That was probably maybe 30,000
Well-
foot high.
that way you'll be able to compare.
And then tell us about his company and what it is they services they provide. And learn all we can about what's happening around this area in terms of street level. And find some best practices. I would also like to invite another company. Come in, just to try to compare.
Sure.
And I, I'll talk to the committee about it. There's several I think we could look at. My intent is not to take forever to get this done.
Right.
I want to get this done by September. Because you're not messing with me going to Florida.
Well, the sooner you get it, the better off I think in the city is.
Yeah,
That way
look.
we get.
Have a plan for you to look at
Right,
and move forward and get her done.
right.
Get it done.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you for coming. We appreciate that.
glad to be here.
Like you said, the next meeting is Thursday, May 11th at 5 o'clock in this room.
Yes. Don't sit me in the room yet.
No, wasn't doing that this time.
Thank you.
All right, you bet. Thank you.
I think it's nice to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
That was an interesting, actually, for the city about that.
There's a lot of opportunity for cost saving. I'm excited about it.
There's, and a lot of cities are now they're doing all this, what they're doing, so. It's amazing. Okay. We got those two items out of the way. Let's go back to the beginning of the agenda and let's go with the trash collection update.
Overall positive update, the one significant peak that you see is the Monday following, Good Friday. So next month would be a little bit higher that day, but overall they've been staying on track and providing an acceptable service in light of contract.
All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments about this?
No, I think they've been doing a good job of circling back to customers who have had comments and taking care of it. So
Yeah, for the most part, I would agree with that, except there was a couple of things which I'm not laughing because it's not funny, but it's just kind of comical in a way on Facebook. Some people made some comments, but that sometimes those comments get way, people kind of say more than what they should say, but they did come back around and pick those people up.
Sometimes they hurt my feelings.
Well,
You can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Right.
yeah, I never was a big Facebook guy, but like when I was in the hospital, that's all I had. Just do it, and they used to get really mad at me because I'd get on my computer and I'm in ICU. And they're going like, what are you doing? And I go, I'm working on my city stuff. And I couldn't even talk. I was like, oh, I couldn't even understand what I was saying. And they would take it away from me. So I don't know, but I got more familiar with Facebook. So I will say that.
Instagram.
No, I don't even know anything about that. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I'm just getting good at Facebook, or not good, but aware of it. And Instagram, I don't know anything about, so I don't even mess with it. Okay, so the trash is going along good. Okay, now the big one we're going through is our draft budget review. Yes, sir.
Talk on it? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It's good to see you.
Likewise.
All right, yeah.
So I'll just hit some high points. I'll kind of give some framework with kind of where we came from.
Right.
This budget has no new position. In fact, actually, there's one less position that's gonna be in this budget than was in last year. The parameters that we set for the department heads was to stay at 1% of the last year's operating budget. Unless it was practically impossible to do that or the department couldn't function. So
Excluding salaries, raises, correct?
just the operational piece of the budget, correct, which is separate from salary. You know, there's things we cannot control, fuel costs. We can't control what the tipping fees are. So every department has gone up one more than 1%, but we said, hey, we are not going to allow anything over 1% unless there's a justified reason why. So that was a parameter. You know, we're expecting a double-digit health insurance increase. That is,
Yeah, do you not really know yet at this point on that?
we're in the process of getting bids. We're supposed to get final estimates tomorrow. I'm sure we're going to continue to negotiate that down.
What did you budget? What kind of increase did you budget for?
We took last year's actuals and then we added about 12%. So I think we're gonna come in right around that number. Hopefully we come in a little bit less, but we're gonna work on 12%. Okay. Fuels up, contracts, just across the board. If a contract is expired, the company has chosen to renew at a higher price. So that's just across the board. We factored a 6% COLA. So all employees across the board, 6% COLA for cost of living. The social security CPI is 8.7%. Traditionally, that's kind of what the city has pegged. But 6% is all that the budget can absorb at this point. So 6%.
What about step raises? Did you budget any of those with the COLA?
Yes, is normal. So normal merits that will go in, and then a COLA at 6%.
You know how much money, the raw number amount that's going for employee raises, COLA and step? And if you don't, you can get that for me later.
I don't, I think the merits about equal out when the higher level staff retire and lower level are hired on. But I can see what was calculated for merits. There were, for public safety, big focus on public safety, there was an additional 10 cars in the budget outfitted with lights for the police department. As kind of the balancing feature of the budget, we put 350,000 towards a fire engine future purchase. It wasn't that we have landed on any particular schedule for maintenance replacement. We just had a $350,000 buffer that we plugged in for the fire department for a future fire apparatus purchase. There was approximately $1 million, there was exactly $1 million that was added for paving. So 900,000 was in the general fund. And 100,000 was in State Street 8, correct? So there's an additional $1 million in paving over the last year's original budget.
So how much is that in the total in the budget? Is it?
I think it's
4 million?
3.8.
3.8. You don't remember how much last year we budgeted, even with the mid-year budget.
3.8.
3.8 is mid-year.
3.7.
Mid-year.
I think we came at 3.7 to 3.8. I think it's like 3.84. Perfect.
So 3.8, is that, what is that for now? That's for the actual paving, yes. That's good.
Actually, that's an area that we were looking at. Pavings too. So, you know, there was a huge difference. The first year I went out and drove the streets with Sarah and Trace. It was like, oh my God, every street needs to be done. And now there's been a marked improvement over the last few years. When we went out and drove, there was just much better road conditions. And as we do those roads, it's less time doing potholes.
Right.
It's less pothole money. So it's also more efficient for our staff. The more roads we pave, the less time our guys are out the roads doing that maintenance because it's done during the paving too. So
I'm just hearing concerns now within subdivisions. I know our first preference was to do the more traveled roads. But I'm getting more and more complaints about, well, when are you gonna pave another road in our subdivision, you know? So, but this is good, 3.8 is good, and I'm sure we're gonna get a list. We're gonna get,
I have a,
You have a card yet?
yes, forgive the stapling on the wrong corner, but
so is this public? Is this public?
I had the printer do it and I selected the wrong corners.
You know, Bowman hasn't approved the budget.
They haven't.
But we bought, this is it.
But here is a paving list as the budget stands now. So I think, you know, there's a tremendous amount of streets on here. In addition, there are 3 parking lots at Drake's Creek. So it's the back section and the 2 front parking lots when you pull in off of Indian. And those are areas where there's a lot of just pothole maintenance time spent, so we were able to get a little bit in the parks, but a lot of it on the streets.
And I know the parks need it, but are there streets that need it more than parking lots in the parks? I mean, are we sacrificing streets that, I'm not opposed, I'm just trying to examine the priorities.
I'll give you my opinion real quick, because I thought the same thing. I would bet that the 3 parking lots we're talking about, 2 of them were probably rated in the 30s. And most of these roads are rated in the 40s.
Okay, that's enough for me.
And the other thing with the parks too, is there were some other streets we were looking at, but they were very short segments, and we'd rather wait and do a longer segment, so we were able to come in and kind of section off some parking lot for those short segments.
Okay, very good.
Just one additional comment I would add to that as well, is with the parking lots. A couple of them at least have ADA parking. And with the condition of them, it's actually an ADA.
Well, that was one of
concern
my
as well.
questions in parks. We're spending a lot on ADA, so that's for parking lots.
I'm sorry, parks on ADA? I can't speak to the parks budget on ADA.
Okay,
I apologize.
I'll bring that up later. So is any of the parks parking, can we use stormwater? Because are they gonna need drainage work on them, and is that a possibility?
It may be on some of the other ones. We picked 3 of the smaller ones.
Okay,
That dense, I mean, they were, it's a fraction of what. Of the total pavement area over at Drake's Creek.
Yeah.
So the bigger ones potentially, but not the smaller ones.
Okay. okay. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you.
And maybe the most exciting piece is that there's a new revenue source in this budget. From investment income, so there's, I believe, 650,000. Yes. In investment income, that would be. Yeah.
Some draft until the budget.
So 3.8 will get this.
That's under our current contract.
That's a lot.
That's good.
We are rebidding. Our contract.
Mhm.
We'll start in July.
Do that.
July 1. I mean, we might give them the go ahead.
I'll remind you that.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna pay for it till July. So a good list. Sarah and Tracy done a great job.
So a start date is when?
July 1.
I know, I thought you said you were gonna pay them then too.
Well, I'm saying we might tell them to prepare in June.
Oh, okay.
After this, after the budget, we will tell Rogers, be prepared, we'd like to start July.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood here.
The funds are authorized from July 1.
Right. Okay,
So you said you're rebidding the contract? Is that a service contract? Or do you bid work or?
Yeah, so they'll bid asphalt, concrete work, so if we see prices change a little bit, I doubt they're gonna go down. Yeah, we might have to adjust the schedule. I think this has a little bit of flexibility built in. But if we see some increases, then we might have to prepare.
It's a competitive bid on that's.
Yeah.
It's an annual contract though with a 5-year term. It's not we don't bid this list specifically.
Yeah, it's an IDIQ.
that's good. Okay. This is great. This is wonderful. I'm your prodigal son.
So as I was saying, on the revenue side of the house, we did add a new column under interest income. And that was a investment policy that BOMA had approved. So we have an additional about $625,000 from the previous year that will be generating. And our assistant finance director, Tamara, has already put about 20 million into that pot of money. So we're earning interest, I think, at over 4% on $20 million. Yeah.
Excellent.
Jesse sort of has a funny story about that. You talk about Pinnacle Bank.
So the current bank that we're at has also offered to raise our interest savings for the funds that are in. the bank within.
That we're taking out.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So we have. We will leave some in our bank. And we will earn interest on both our investment pool and the regular interest, the regular bank account.
That's for petty cash, or not petty cash,
Yeah.
but that's for cash.
$4 or $5 million.
Yeah.
That's go forward.
No, that's pretty smart.
So, you know, it's smart on their behalf. I think it's a very good move on their
Yeah.
behalf. We start moving out chunks of $4.5 million at a time, and they say, hey,
Ouch.
you know, we'd like to help you out. And
Yeah.
I said, we'll take that.
So what are they, what kind of help are they offering? Interest rate, or can you say it?
They are going to be very competitive with the rate that we are getting out.
Excellent. Excellent.
Competitive and maybe better.
We're gonna keep both. We're gonna keep
Yes, sir.
both.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. And is all that FDIC insured?
Yes.
So we're spreading it to make sure that it's covered by the FDIC.
I think you got your attention, didn't you?
Yeah, it's good.
Excellent.
So, we broke the budget into an operating and a non-operating. And as I've explained before, your operating is more as your personal checking, right? You want to make sure that you have enough revenue coming in to cover your expenses on the operating side. The non-operating side is more like a savings account where you're going to do these one-time projects. You're never going to be positive on your non-operating budget unless you have ARPA funds like we got last year. You know, we got almost $6 million in ARPA funds, which went on our non-operating budget. So you will see that the non-operating budget goes in the red. This packet that you have today is the same one that went to the committees, and it just had the operating side completed. So we're still working on the non-operating, but this budget sits with a surplus on the operating side of almost $2,000. So that's keeping the lights on, keeping everyone paid. It's the COLAs, it's the additional $1 million in paid, the things that we've talked about. So what we'll see on the non-operating side is a deficit because we're carrying forward a lot of the projects from the previous year, but we don't have ARPA funds to offset the deficit this year.
So is our budget balance in toto?
Well, we'll be using some of our fund balance to budget.
How much?
We are still working through that, but as it sits right now, I think we're around $2 million for the project.
So using reserves.
Mhm.
So one of the questions I asked, I'd like to see a comparison of the reserves from last year to this year, what we project,
Mhm.
the balance.
Yes, sir. We're actually putting a sheet in the budget book that will be for all of BOMA that shows the reserve balances.
Excellent.
And it shows the previous year, and it'll show the current year. That'll be incorporated on a go forward in the budget.
But they'll still be within the comptroller's guidelines.
We will exceed it because last year this year we'll have a big surplus because we didn't do all the projects. So we are anticipating a surplus in our non-operating. It'll be much bigger because we didn't do the projects and we got the ARPA funds. So we took a gain this year, we'll take a loss next year. In totality, it'll about even out because we didn't do those. We budgeted as if we were gonna do the entire project, which we didn't. We haven't finished all of our entire project.
So did all the departments submit a 1% within 1% as you requested?
They did, unless there was items that we said are justified to go beyond 1%. Fuel, things of that nature couldn't stick within the 1%. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions you may have.
Just to come up at the June meeting.
We'll have a budget workshop I believe May 1, we're gonna have budget workshop.
On this.
Yeah, and we'll have the projects, and so we'll have the non-operating people look at in the budget workshop, too. That's mainly what we'll focus on, since these committee meetings got to look at the operating piece. We will have a capital projects meeting May 1st, and then we'll have a BOMA meeting right after, that, and we'll focus a lot of students. We'll get to look at it there. Then we're gonna take it to finance committee, so once we gather all the input from the workshops and the mayor has any recommended changes based on that, we'll incorporate it into the budget. So an updated budget will go to finance committee, and then it will go to BOMA for 2 readings.
Two reading.
Yes, sir.
So you have to go somewhere else, I think. At 6 o'clock. So I submitted a number of questions to you. We'll just cover those. You covered some of them, but we'll just cover those. Is Andy gonna go with you to the other meeting as well? So, okay, so I'll just cover those questions. I had several questions, Andy, and please share them with you without the special events. I'm going to talk about the special events. So, okay, I'll just, but one thing I have to ask, Public Works, they're at 0.04 from last year. So how in the world are they, are you a magician? Because that includes salaries, doesn't it, and everything, and they're less than 1% increase in their first item, their budget. Right? 0.04 is what the chart says. I mean, how is that possible? Public Works. What page is it?
Page 7, so summary.
It's near the back. After where they
Okay, it's page 40.
40. So I saw that and I said, that's got to be a typo.
For the full-time regular salaries.
Yeah. What's the number, the percent change? It's an increase over the previous year of $500. How in the
Oh, I
world,
see what you're saying.
how in the world are you doing that?
Is that the
That's,
real?
yeah, finance put they have all the granular detail on this. So I'd have to pull up the detail.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I don't think I've ever seen that small amount. Good job, Eddie.
Was part of it reallocating some of our salaries?
Yeah, that's
what happened? Yeah, okay.
So what we've done is we have a stormwater fund that's dedicated for stormwater. What we have been doing is we've been spending stormwater resources out of the public funds budget. So we said, hey, let's do an analysis of the department. And if you're spending time, you're dedicating people to stormwater, then we should charge to the appropriate fund that is dedicated for stormwater. So there's where we took some of those salaries, we put a percentage of them.
and that makes sense. I just saw that. Everybody else is much higher than that. I said, bravo, Sarah.
Took it out of public works budget, make stormwater.
Yeah, so we looked at where it's getting spent and then we put it in the bucket that it's getting spent. A little more sophisticated, a little more time for finance. to track.
So I've got to ask this. Jim and I have been flooded with complaints about the stoplight and stop flooding at Drake's Creek. It's fixed now, but part of the problem is we didn't have a technician to check those. Is that in this budget? And are we doing it with existing staff?
We're actually reducing one staff, so we took 2 vacant positions and we joined them together.
Okay.
And then we're making the traffic signal technician position out of it.
They'll be checking all the boxes and make sure they're current, that they're accurate and working properly.
Yes, sir, and then we'll need to start including in our budgets of spare equipment, so parts go out, we have it on hand and not to order it, wait for it to come in.
Perfect. And
Very good, good.
ooh, yeah, were you going to talk about the Clinton or is that later?
We're gonna do that in Belmont.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Tonight,
Good,
Yes, sir.
good announcement tonight.
good.
I need one. My head's
All right.
hurting.
I mean, I've got a lot, I'll just hold them for the workshop.
Okay. Thank you. Good question.
Okay, our workshops on May 1st, the same meeting as your capital projects. And what time is that one?
I believe it's 6:30
6:30?
and I'll make the announcement.
Okay, good. And yours is at 5. Okay, all right.
Because I know,
What time is yours?
I know we've got some new information on capital projects. I know we do. I'm here to do the great thing.
All right. If there's any other questions on the budget, we'll see you on May 1st about it.
Thank you.
All right, so if you all need to.
And staff, good one.
Everybody, yeah.
You can go now.
One of the things I want to, and I have told Jesse this. I want to look at the study, what's they call the pay study. Yes, sir. Is it in yet?
No, we've gotten a draft version that the consultant refined.
And I'm not saying this because he's in here. But I want to see what the study, how they examine our department heads. And I personally think with everything that Parks is doing, that you and the mayor should look at possibly raising the salary of our director. I've looked at it. I know what he does. He you know, the golf course, he's added that. So I just like to look at the pay study and to see if that justifies. And if it does, I'll be glad to make that amendment.
Okay.
And I'm not doing it just because he's in. I just know how much work our parks, how much our park works. Yes.
Absolutely.
So now I may cut you in some other areas.
Did you pay him to do the, they trade my salary, but you go there?
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Where y'all going now? Finance?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
He said $500.
We've just got to be talking about the traffic signal at Drake's Creek and Stop 30. Do we need any more? I know it's back in order. I know these gentlemen right here had calls on it because I even had calls on
I was gonna have to move to Texas.
I had to move it in the other day.
So are the parks here?
No,
Give us an update on that.
so they're still trying to locate a conflict monitor.
So tell them what you did to try to fix it.
So, well, for a little backstory, the complaints had been coming in for a while and were not ignored. The contractor went out there and reviewed it, and then I went out there and reviewed it, and it appeared that everything was, when I was there, was operating appropriately. It appeared that the detection was working and all those things. And then after the complaints continued, the contractor went out again. I went out again, and even though the detection appeared to be working, I extended, or I changed one of the settings just so it runs the maximum green time for Drake's Creek Road every single cycle, as opposed to relying on detection to extend it. It's just going to run the max 60 seconds, 65 seconds every cycle. And I attribute this to the old equipment, and you know, just like our computers, sometimes we'll get a glitch and they'll need to be restarted. I mean, this equipment is like that. It's very old. So,
Estimated date when they can be delivered.
I don't have an estimated date because the conflict monitors new or back ordered currently.
From China? Probably. Well, if you'll let Jim and I know when that, but they are working better. My number of complaints has dropped significantly
Yeah.
with you fixing that. So thanks, Sarah. And thanks, Megan, for getting involved in this. Good deal. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we've got, speaking of red lights, let's go to the light synchronization program. A little update on that.
Sure. So everything is progressing well. They've been making good progress. You notice they've actually been working out in front of City Hall. So that work, they're making the connection from the fiber to City Hall, and then they'll be working in City Hall for a short period of time, running those connections and getting the traffic operations center kind of set up, and then they'll finish running the rest of the fiber.
So Main Street's first. What's second? New Shackle or
Yeah.
Indian Lake?
Well, it'd probably be Anderson to Indian Lake, so New Shackle and Indian Lake Boulevard actually both already have some fiber installed from previous projects that just hasn't been connected and utilized.
Right.
And so there may be some additional work that they may have to do, just depending if any of that conduit or fiber's damaged.
So some of it just needs to be hooked up properly.
Yes,
to this.
but new
So,
controllers.
Mayor, I've had some concerns expressed with Costco that we get the light synchronization there as quickly as possible before Costco opens or shortly thereafter.
Makes sense.
To help with the traffic. So if staff and the mayor will look at the leg so that when we do open Costco, we got synchronization to help a little bit with the traffic there.
The intersection is.
So we can review that. New Shackle specifically is on a coordinated plan. When they did the New Shackle widening project. Now, sometimes, the clocks can get out of sync, things like that. We can evaluate it, but they should be coordinated. And then one of the requirements we had for Costco, because they're gonna be adding a turn lane on New Shackle as well, not coordinate with Teton on that. But was for them to evaluate the timing for that intersection and to ensure that it's
The light at that intersection, is that our responsibility or T-Dot?
ours. We maintain all the traffic signals along T-Dot right away. Yeah. So we will definitely evaluate that. The construction.
So is it coming in,
No,
is it coming in at budget?
So far,
No-
yes.
No changes or no?
We had two very minor changes,
Okay.
but they're going to balance out. For example, one of them. The bid documents allow for silt fence instead of silt fence. In many locations, they felt that straw wattles were more appropriate eels. And so that was a change order to add that. But so we'll see a reduction in silt fence.
Good change over.
Yes, I guess it'd be like a washout, really, wouldn't it? So, okay. All right, now our Saunders Ferry Greenway update.
That project also is moving along very well. The contractor has been doing a really good job, actually, and the construction engineering inspector that we selected has been making it very streamlined. So they have approved the boardwalks. They'll begin on those in May, I believe it is, and then they'll do another pour for the greenway behind the Moby Dickey stretch. If it was
Say that again.
another concrete pour behind the Moby Dickey stretch of the greenway. They're going to do that in coordination with the abutment to start the boardwalks there.
So are the boardwalks, that's over the water, is that right?
Yes,
So are they still moving forward?
yes. Yeah, we've gotten the approvals on those, so they'll be starting them shortly.
Cause I talked to Dickie Moran this afternoon,
Mhm.
and he said that he was told that they were not gonna do the boardwalks. And that they needed some of his land.
Oh, no. No, that's a misunderstanding. We met on site last week and discussed with him because in order to not go through the formal right-of-way process, the connection to Moby Dickey's in order to stay on core property kind of swept out from the boardwalk, it swept out and it was going to be right where they've added a gravel parking area. And so we met with them to discuss an alternative to provide a more direct connection to the property line, which would align with the sidewalk that's closer to Sanders Ferry Road for a future connection, which made more sense and then alleviated the impact of their parking.
So the change is going to affect the number of parking spots he's going.
Our intention with meeting with him was to not impact his parking.
That's not the way he understands it. So
Okay.
who would be the best person to contact him, mayor, to straighten that out? Because he says this is gonna kill him because it's gonna take a lot of his parking.
We're not gonna take any parking, but
Steve calling.
Steven, yeah, I'll have Steven, because Steven organized that meeting specifically.
Yeah.
When did you last talk to him?
This afternoon. He had a straight flush. So he's playing with cards when I talked to him. So he was at the club and he called Eddie, come over here. Said, they're gonna kill me. They're taking some of my parking. And, you know, they don't have parking enough anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
That's if we construct it per plan. And actually, I told him while we were out there, we don't even have to construct that connection in order to satisfy this project. So I mean, if he didn't want any of that connection, then we don't have to construct any connection to the greenway from his property.
It might be good, Mayor, if you reach out to him too.
I was there last week and he wasn't in, but I'll make sure we explain.
Well, we walked out there this weekend and it looks really, really good. The concrete work.
Mhm.
And they kept the site clean, the pollution prevention measures, keeping everything out of the lake. So you do have a first class contractor. At the Lincoya. The Lincoya section,
Mhm.
there's a kind of a drop off. Are they gonna have a guardrail or something?
I could look at that exact section. There are a couple of sections where they're going to have to add railing.
Okay.
Satisfy
Yeah.
TDOT requirements and general safety.
I've been working with the mayor, there's a rising Eagle Scout that needed a project. And I suggested on the Greenway to put kind of a walk of honor. A tree for every fallen police officer with a plaque.
Okay.
And so the mayor agreed to it. I think I talked to you about it. I talked to the chief about it and he thought it's a good idea. So since the chairman of safety's here, they'll be moving. So they're gonna put a nice tree up and a plaque for every officer that's fallen in the line of service. So that'll be on the Greenway as well. I think that'd be a good touch.
All right. Well, it sounds like we've got a lot of stuff going on other business. I do want to say about limb pickup. I know they're on this side of town now, but on the back side of like Rebecca Drive and all that area down in that side, you know, that side, they are swamped. I've driven by down there. And I mean, there's just trees. I don't know, and I don't know whether we're gonna have to there might be some emergency funding or something to get some of these trees picked up. But they've been there since the bad weather. That's how long they've been there.
Maybe trees, brush.
Yeah, brush.
Could you put out front on that too?
Because it's absolutely everywhere. And I'm not putting down the guys because I know they're hustling because I've seen them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Drake's Creek, there's several that's been there for months.
But there's
On
been
Drake's Creek.
there's been absolutely. I've been down there looking at, it's not good. It just doesn't look good.
Sure.
So have them take a look at that and see.
Yeah.
There might be some kind of funding or something. We've got emergency funds to use to bring somebody in.
Well, they've resumed their normal route, so they should be
Well,
addressed, but I'll have.
see, that's a
I'll review
problem,
it.
really. Because if they're resuming their normal route, they're not gonna get over on this side for a long time if they do that, because I think they're in A1 or something like that intersection. I don't know.
So, But we'll.
But take a look at it and see, but especially around that whole Rebecca Drive area, they're just everywhere. It's just branches are everywhere.
No, we have 3 trucks that run the regular routes.
And yeah, it's back towards the lake. It's not good. But anyway, all right.
Did we just purchase a new truck?
I
They
think
called
we're
it
in
a
the
knuckle
process
truck or something.
of approving a new one, yes, the knuckle boom.
That's actually having a finance committee right now.
So
Yeah.
will that make 4 that we have then, or is this gonna replace one of the old?
This will actually make, I believe it is 5. We have another one, but they're older. They have a lot of issues and one of them needs a new engine.
And also Sterling Road too. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's. Although there's just a lot of, that's down by the lake, but there's heavy, tree limbs down there too. So well, because I remember driving by there and looked at that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other business tonight? We'll go ahead and if not, we'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. At 6:17.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much.